In this video, we're going to be looking at the gap fill page type. If you're completely new to Xerte, watch the Introduction to Xerte video in this channel before you watch this one. The gap fill page type comprises three different formats: drag drop, fill in blank, and drop down menu. In the drag drop format, learners drag missing words into spaces. In the fill-in-blank format, learners type them into spaces, and in the drop-down format, learners choose missing words from drop-down menus which are embedded in the text. Let's have a look at these three page types in more detail. There is a link to a Xerte lesson including all the example pages shown in this video in the description below, so you can try them out at your leisure. With drag drop, the words or phrases are displayed at the bottom of the screen. In the default format, these are dragged into position, and if they are correctly placed, they turn green and a tick is displayed. If the word or phrase is dragged into an incorrect position, it bounces back to its original position. You can add words as distractors if you want to make the task more challenging, as I've done here. In addition, you can add mark at end as an optional property, and in this configuration, all the drags are accepted, so there are no bounce backs. I'll quickly demonstrate this. The learner clicks on a check button to reveal the correct answers. The incorrect answers have returned to the bottom of the screen, and the learner can continue dragging and checking until the task has been completed. With fill in blank, learners type the words into the spaces. As they type, the word is in a bold red font, and when it has been successfully typed, the word turns green and a tick is displayed. In the default format, if a learner types in an incorrect answer, then hints are given to guide the learner towards the correct answer. These hints take the form of letters in the correct answer, which are revealed one by one. You can adjust how frequently these hints are provided through the Hints optional property. If you increase the number of attempts before hints, the hints appear less frequently. If you want to, you can hide the hints to make the task more challenging, but clearly the hints provide useful support when needed, particularly for learners who have problems with spelling. In fact, the hints feature offers potential in creating learning materials which focus specifically on spelling or sound spelling relationships. To create the gaps in the text, you have to enclose the word or phrase with delimiters, and the default delimiter is a vertical bar, as you can see here. With just one click, you can toggle between the drag and drop format and the fill in blank format when you're authoring, so you don't really have to make a firm decision on the final format until you've created and reviewed the task. This offers the potential to create two tasks in the time you need to design one. So you could start with a drag drop task, which is relatively easy, and then copy and represent the same task in the more challenging fill-in-blank format. The third and final format, drop-down menu, is significantly different to the other two formats. And one way to conceptualize it is to think of it as a text with multiple choice questions embedded in it. So here's an example. Learners click on the drop-down arrow and then choose their answer. They click on the check button when they've completed the task. After checking, the learner can go back and correct any that they've got wrong. This is how it looks in the authoring interface. Again, the vertical bars have been used as delimiters, and within the vertical bars, the first item you enter is the correct answer, and the incorrect answers are the others. These have to be separated by another delimiter, and in this case it's slash marks. One big advantage of drop-down menu is that you are in control of the options presented to learners for each gap. So you could use this format, for example, to give learners practice in selecting the correct verb tenses in a text, or in choosing the correct part of speech for a particular gap, or for vocabulary work, perhaps focusing on near synonyms. Here's some advice about authoring gap fill pages. This page is fairly easy to author with, but if you need help, refer to the page on gap fill in the Xerte wiki. A link to this page is in the description below. The gaps can be created for individual words or phrases, as we've seen in the examples. If the gaps are phrases, this is fine for drag-drop and drop-down menu, but does not work so well for fill-in-blank, because the learner has to type in an exact answer, including any spaces or capital letters. And the more typing the learner has to do, the higher the risk of inadvertently typing in an unacceptable answer. There is a lot more potential in the gap fill page type if you move beyond thinking of it as simply filling in gaps in a text. For example, in the drag and drop format, you can gap the whole text to create an ordering task. You can also put gaps into a table and use the fill-in-blank format to help learners, for example, learn patterns in irregular verb forms. One final piece of advice about scrolling and task length. Don't put too much text on a gap fill page, particularly for drag drop. With fill in blank and drop down menu, the task can be as long as you want it to be, although as a general rule, you don't want learners to have to do too much scrolling. With drag drop, however, you really must have the draggable objects, the words or the phrases, and the whole text visible together on one screen. Learners can zoom out if necessary, but this reduces the size of the text and may create accessibility issues. If appropriate, you can split your text into 2 or more parts and present each part on a separate drag-drop page. I hope you found this video useful, and if so, do add a like. You can also post questions or comments and I'll respond within 2 or 3 days.